I hope you got an interesting shot of my face. Uh, One of the things I've got to deal with today is I did something that I've been afraid I was going to do. I sat down, I did all this work last night, I printed it out, I put it in a chair so I could pick it up this morning and bring it with me. But my notes are still sitting in the chair. But there's something I started doing when I realized this. Unfortunately, my laptop no longer works on the Wi-Fi, so I have to use my phone. I send the whole study by email. And so then I can pull it up on here and look at it and read it and hopefully make some sense out of it for y'all, and y'all make some sense out of this. We're in Ezekiel chapter 25. Yahweh at this point, after he has done everything he can do to Israel with Nebuchadnezzar, he now is turning his judgment against the nations around Israel. And in this case, in chapter 25, it starts off with the judgment on Ammon, which is today's modern Jordan. The word of Yahweh came again to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against the Ammonites, and prophesy against them. And say unto the Ammonites, Hear the word of Adonai. Hear the word of. Boy, my mind goes blank at times. It's Adonai Yahweh is what it is in the Hebrew. Thus says Adonai Yahweh, because you said, against, or against my sanctuary, when the sanctuary was destroyed, when it was profaned, and against the land of Israel, and when it was desolate, and against the house of Judah, when they went into captivity. You were just so happy, clapping your hands, just really joyous over the fact of this going on. Behold, therefore, I will deliver you to the men of the east for a possession. You're going to pay for it. And they shall set their palaces in thee, and make their dwellings in you. They shall eat your fruit, and they shall drink your milk. And I will make Rabbah a stable for camels, and the Ammonites a couching place for flocks. And you shall know that I am Yahweh. For thus says Adonai Yahweh, because you have clapped thine hands, or your hands, and stamped with the feet, and rejoiced in heart with all despite against the land of Israel. Behold, therefore, I will stretch out mine hand upon you, and will deliver you for a spoil to the heathen, and I will cut you off from the people, and I will cause you to perish out of the countries. I will destroy you, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. I mean, you think about that. They were happy that Israel was being destroyed and overrun and taken into captivity. And basically Yahweh said, well, why were you happy about all of this? I'm going to read the notes here. It was a distinct part of scriptural prophecy to address pagan nations. You can put in your notes Isaiah chapter 13 through 19 in chapters, Jeremiah 46 through 51, and Ezekiel 25 through 32. All of these are related to each other. Okay, and I just didn't want to spend all the time talking about that. One section is especially devoted to the collection of such prophecies. Every such prediction had the general purpose of exhibiting the conflict ever waging between the servants of Yahweh and the powers of the world. The struggle in which, as this commentator makes, the church of the Messiah has still to wrestle against her foes, but in which she will surely prevail. He's using Ephesians 6:12. It was a distinct part of scriptural prophecy to address pagan nations. One section especially devoted to every such prediction had the general purpose of exhibiting the conflict ever waging. Wait a minute, that's all. I'm sorry. For some reason, they repeated that. This series of prophecies, with one exception, was delivered at the time of the fall of Jerusalem, some shortly before and some shortly after the capture of the city. They were collected together to illustrate their original purpose of warning the nations not to exult in their neighbor's fall. 7 nations were addressed, which have had most contact with the children of Israel. On the eastern borders of Moab and Ammon, to the south, Edom. On the southwest, Philistia. Toward Tyre, the merchant city, and the more ancient Sidon. And lastly, Egypt, alternating the scourge and the false stay of the chosen people. The number 7 is symbolic of completeness. 7 prophecies against Egypt, the chief of 7 nations, denote the completeness of the overthrow of the pagan power, the antagonist of the kingdom of Yahweh. While other prophets hold out to these pagan nations some prospect of future mercy. Ezekiel speaks of their complete ruin. He was contemplating national ruin, not just a little bit, really running them down. In the case of Jerusalem, there would be national restoration, but in the case of the pagan, no such recovery. The national ruin was irretrievable. The remnant to whom the other prophets hold out hopes of mercy were to find it as individuals gathered in Yahweh's church, not as nations, but to be again set up. Ezekiel does not, like other prophets, prophesy against Babylon. It was his mission to show that for the moment, Babylon was a righteous instrument of the divine wrath, doing Yahweh's work in punishing his foes. In prophesying against these foreign nations, Ezekiel often adopts the language of those who preceded him. In Ezekiel 25, the 4 nations most closely connected with one another by geographical position and by contact are addressed in a few brief sentences concluding with the same refrain: "You shall know that I am Yahweh." This prophecy was delivered immediately after the capture of the city by Nebuchadnezzar, and so is later in point of time than some of the prophecies that follow it. The Ammonites were inveterate, I always have problems with that word, inveterate foes of the descendants of Abraham. I love this English, wording. As he was pointing out here, all this is going on around Ezekiel. Let's see here. In Ezekiel 25:2, "Son of man, set your face toward the children of Ammon and prophesy against them." Commentary: we have already seen in Ezekiel 21:19 that when Nebuchadnezzar left Babylon, he was in doubt whether he should besiege Riblah, the capital of the Ammonites, or Jerusalem, the capital of the Jews, first. And having used his divination, he called on his people to tell him what to do. Yes, Curtis?
Actually, I have one of those nations you just read off. It's found in Psalm 83.
Yeah, Psalm 83 is the Confederacy.
Yes, it is. That's verses 4 through 8.
Verses 4 through 8. Confederacy against Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Going on here, it says that Nebuchadnezzar was determined by the result to attack Jerusalem first. He did so, and the Ammonites, seeing the success of his arms, made friends with him and exulted in the ruin of the Jews. Yahweh resents this and predicts their downfall with that of Edom, Moab, and the Philistines. The fulfillment of this prediction, come on, machine, is not noted in Scripture. But Josephus tells us that about 5 years after taking of Jerusalem, Nebuchadnezzar turned his arms against the Ammonites and the Moabites, and afterwards against Egypt, and having subdued those nations, he returned to Babylon. Let's see. It goes on and says that Nebuchadnezzar subdued Syria, Arabia, Phoenicia, and Egypt, and consequently that he had brought under his dominion the Ammonites, Moabites, Edomians, and who were included among the Philistines. Wow. Let's see. We made a comment earlier about Ephesians 6:12. For our wrestling is not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against the powers, against the world's rulers of the darkness of this age, and against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore put on the whole armor of Elohim, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. When it talks about in verse 6 about them clapping their hands, because you have clapped your hands and stamped your feet, gestures expressive of joy and gladness, found in Isaiah 55:12. For you shall go out with joy and be led out with peace. The mountains and the hills will break out before you in singing, and all the trees of the fields will clap their hands. The Ammonites clapped their hands together and leaped and skipped for joy when they heard of the calamities of the Jews, who yet had more reason to be sorrowful, since they might expect their turn would be next. And then Yahweh does extend his hand with it. Let's see. We're down to, yeah. Verse 8 of chapter 25 of Ezekiel. Thus says Adonai Yahweh, because that Moab and Seir do say, behold, the house of Judah is like unto all the heathen. Well, basically what they're showing here is, yeah, you're the chosen of Yahweh, but when it came down to what Yahweh has prophesied, you're just as bad as we are. You're going to get the same results that we are. Well, they thought they were. They were getting, Yahweh is bringing it against Jerusalem to bring them to repentance. You know, it's times that there are things that we have to go through in order for Yahweh to kind of strengthen, I guess you could say, our repentance, our desire to follow Yahweh, instead of, going out yonder and doing whatever we want to do. It says, verse 9, therefore, behold, I will open the side of Moab from his cities which are in on his frontiers, the glory of the country, Beit Yeshimoth, Baal Meon, and Kiriathim, unto the men of the east with the Ammonites, and will give them in possession, that the Ammonites may not be remembered among the nations. And basically, as he acts in the commentary, where's Ammon today? Where is the Ammonites? Where, huh?
Northern Jordan.
Well, we know it as Jordan, as a territory, but they're not known as Ammonites.
They're not known as Ammonites. That's northern Jordan.
They're just called Jordanians. And so, it says, let's see here. This is difficult doing it with this way. Going on to verse 11. And I will execute judgments upon Moab, and they shall know that here's the kicker, to know that I am Yahweh. I'm not some God out there. I am the God. Verse 12, thus says Adonai Yahweh, because that Edom hath dealt against the house of Judah by taking vengeance, and hath greatly offended and revenged himself upon them. Therefore, thus says Adonai Yahweh, I will also stretch out mine hand upon Edom, and will cut off man and beast from it, and I will make it desolate from Teman, and they of Dedan shall fall by the sword. That's the north and south extremities of the land of Edom. And I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel, and they shall do in Edom according to mine anger and according to my fury, and they shall know my vengeance, says Adonai Yahweh. Throughout its history, Edom was one of the chief enemies of Israel, beginning with its unreasonable refusal to allow Moses and Israelites to cross its land. That's found in Numbers 20, verses 14 through 21. Edom continued to harass and oppose Elohim's people. These included Saul in 1 Samuel 14:47, David in 2 Kings 8:13 and 14, Solomon in 1 Kings 11:14 through 18, Jehoram in 2 Kings 8:20 through 22, Ahaz in 2 Chronicles 28:17. Finally, to add to the ultimate insult, Edom sided with Babylon when Nebuchadnezzar invaded Jerusalem, Judah in 586 BC. Psalms 137:7 and Jeremiah 49:7 through 22. This sin of Edom is particularly singled out by Ezekiel here. They were co-conspirators with the Babylonians against Judah. The prophecy of their destruction was fulfilled by 312 BC when the Nabatean Arabs, their former allies, conquered them. That's found in the book of Obadiah. Their national identity was lost, though a few migrated west and became Jewish proselytes. They actually moved into the southern part of Israel when the Israelites were in 70. I think let's see, yeah, 70. I'm sorry. When the Israelites went into captivity, they moved in the southern part of Israel.
70 AD, you're correct.
Yeah, in 70 AD. Let's see. Now we come on to the judgment on Philistia, verse 15 of Ezekiel 25.
Hey, James, quick question.
Uh-huh.
I got a mic now, so I can talk.
Oh boy. Give the guy a little knowledge.
No, what I was going to say is it's funny that Edom, they were taking vengeance. They were taking vengeance out on Israel, and they were punished for it.
Uh-huh.
But Seir and Moab, all they did was talk bad about Israel,
Yeah.
and they were punished. So that it's funny how if you talk bad about Yahweh's people, He will still take vengeance. You didn't take any action, but you said something bad about them. And
Yeah.
it could cause you to be punished.
Yeah, if you're not supporting them, basically.
Seir is another name for Edom.
What?
Seir?
Seir, yeah.
Yes, and Tyre.
In verse 15 of chapter 25, thus says Adonai Yahweh, because the Philistines have dealt by revenge and have taken vengeance with a despiteful heart to destroy it for the old hatred. Therefore, thus says Adonai Yahweh, behold, I will stretch out mine hand upon the Philistines, and I will cut off the Cherethims and destroy the remnant of the seacoast. And I will execute great vengeance upon them with furious rebukes, and they shall know that I am, here it comes again, shall know that I am Yahweh when I shall lay my vengeance upon them. Like the previous enemies, the Philistines were among Israel's mightiest and most durable foes. After temporary setbacks by Israel's judges, Shamgar in Judges 3:31. Okay, the Philistines became a formidable opponent of Saul and consumed most of his energies as the first king of Israel. It was left to David to subdue them. During the divided monarchy, however, the Philistines opposed Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, Uzziah, and Ahaz. Philistine's sin at this time was simply her attempted destruction of Judah. When Nebuchadnezzar conquered Judah, he also defeated the Philistines. Though both were subjugated by the Babylonians, the Jews retained their national identity. The Philistines disappeared completely by the end of the intertestamental period. Chariots is an ancient synonym for the Philistines, possibly indicating a Philistine link with Crete, the island of Crete. You know, it goes through. One of the things, too, about what's going on here, judgment against Ammon. And who was Ammon? The son of Lot. Okay. Who was Edom? The son of Esau, the children of Esau. These are all cousins.
Moab too.
Yeah, Moab too. They were, yeah, because Moab was Lot's, wasn't he?
Yep.
His other son.
Edom was a brother of Jacob. Esau.
Yeah, he was a big brother of Jacob. All of them were look at all the things that Yahweh is doing for Jacob's descendants. Why ain't he doing anything for ours? And they were jealous. I mean, it's like all these families. There's jealousy. There's arguments. There's fights. All of it because I deserve it more than you do. Chapter 26 of Ezekiel. And it came to pass in the 11th year, in the first day of the month, that the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, because that Tyre has said against Jerusalem, here's another one where he's talking against Jerusalem. Aha, she is broken, that was the gates of the people. She is turned unto me. I shall be replenished now, she is laid waste. Therefore, thus says Adonai Yahweh, Behold, I am against you, O Tyrus, and I will cause many nations to come up against you, as the sea causes its waves to come up, and they shall destroy the walls of Tyrus and break down her towers. I will also scrape her dust from her and make her like the top of a rock. It shall be a place for the spreading of nets in the midst of the sea, for I have spoken, it says Adonai Yahweh, and it shall become a spoil to the nations, and her daughters which are in the field shall be slain by the sword, and they shall know that I am Yahweh. One of the things here is, when it talks about a rock, Tyre was actually two. One was a rock offshore, and then there was the mainland. They had actually brought dirt from the mainland out onto that rock in order to grow crops and to live there. And that was all washed away. And all they came down to was the rock was left. And the fishermen would take their nets and lay it out on this rock and dry it to dry. And so basically, Tyre was destroyed completely. The reason cited is that Tyre said against Jerusalem, Aha, she is broken. The significance of this statement is clear when it is recalled that Tyre and Phoenicia, the nation in which Tyre was situated, were known for their expansive trade and commerce. Having already cornered the maritime routes, Tyre rejoiced at the destruction of Jerusalem because it meant that Tyre now had the potential to secure the caravan trade as well. Mainland Tyre's doom is vividly described in verses 8 through 11. We'll get down there, okay? And was fulfilled when the city fell to Nebuchadnezzar in 573-72 BC after a 13-year siege. So they were under siege for over 13 years. The change of pronouns in verse 12 takes the prophecy beyond the days of Nebuchadnezzar to the Alexander Great's destruction of the island city by using the debris of the ruined mainland city in 332 BC. Tyre was an ancient seaport city of the Phoenicians that lay north of Palestine. The principal seaport of the Phoenician coast, Tyre was situated about 25 miles south of Sidon. Remember, it was mentioned earlier, and 35 miles north of Carmel. It consists of two cities, a rocky coastal city on the mainland and a small island city. The island city was just off the shore. The mainland city was on a coastal plain, a strip of only 15 miles long and 2 miles wide. Several Old Testament prophets prophesied against Tyre. Some condemned the Tyrians for delivering Israelites to the Edomites in Amos 1:9 and selling them as slaves to the Greeks in Joel 3 verses 5 and 6. Jeremiah prophesied against Tyre. Ezekiel prophesied the destruction of Tyre. A prophecy was fulfilled in two stages. The first stage came true when Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, besieged the mainland city of Tyre for 13 years and apparently destroyed it. The second stage was fulfilled in 332 BC when Alexander the Great besieged the island city of Tyre for 7 months. He finally captured it when he built a causeway from the mainland to the island. During the Roman period, Tyre was again rebuilt, eventually achieving a degree of prosperity. That's found in Matthew 11:21. Going on in Ezekiel 26, verse 7. But,
One more comment.
okay.
Do you have Exodus 12, 1 through 3?
Exodus 12, 1, 2, 3. No, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I was looking at this as kind of Yahweh fulfilling his promise to Abraham, as I mentioned earlier, those that bless you, he will bless, and those that will curse you, he will curse. It's in it perfectly aligned in Ezekiel.
See, I missed my computer. Because all I had to do is click on things. Exodus 12, verse 1. And Yahweh spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month... No, wait.
Exodus what is it?
Huh?
Genesis. Sorry, Genesis 12.
Genesis 12, okay, yeah. Okay. Thought he'd found something new. Genesis, now Yahweh has said unto Abraham, get you out of your country and from your kindred and from your father's house unto a land that I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be blessed. Shall be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless you, and curse him that curses you, and in you shall all families of the earth be blessed. So that's the promise that Yahweh made to Abraham, that just by being good to Abraham's descendants gets you blessings. And this is what's happening here. They were so happy to see the destruction of the temple and of the Israelites. So Yahweh said, okay, then you pay the price. Verse 7 of chapter 26. For thus says Adonai Yahweh, behold, I will bring upon you Tyrus, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, a king of kings, from the north, with horses and with chariots and with horsemen and companies and much people. He shall slay with the sword your daughters in the field, and he shall make a ford against you, and cast a mount against thee, and lift up the buckler against thee. And he shall set engines of war against your walls, and with his axes he shall break down your towers. By reason of the abundance of his horses, their dust shall cover you. Your walls shall shake by the noise of the horsemen going back and forth, and of the wheels and of the chariots. When he shall enter into your gates, as men enter into a city wherein is made a breach, with the hoofs of his horses shall he tread down all your streets, which meant basically break up the cobblestone type streets, and tread down all your streets, and he shall slay your people by the sword, and your strong garrison shall go down to the ground. And they shall make spoil of your riches, and make a prey of your merchandise, and they shall break down the walls, and destroy your pleasant houses. And they shall lay your stones, and your timber, and your dust in the midst of the water. And I will cause the noise of your songs to cease, and the sound of your harps shall be no more heard. And I will make you like the top of a rock. You shall be a place to spread nets upon. Remember, going back to the same, that's what they used it for after that. You shall be built no more. For I, Yahweh, have spoken it. Thus says Adonai Yahweh. Verse 15, thus says Adonai Yahweh to Tyrus, shall not the isles shake at the sound of your fall? When the wounded cry, when the slaughter is made in the midst of you, then all the princes of the sea shall come down from their thrones and lay away their robes and put off their broidered garments. They shall clothe themselves with trembling. They shall sit upon the ground and shall tremble at every moment and be astonished at you. And they shall take up a lamentation for you and say to you, how are you destroyed that was inhabited of seafaring men? The renowned city, which was strong in the sea, she and her inhabitants, which caused their terror to be on all that haunted. Now shall the isles tremble in the day of your fall, yea, the isles that were in the sea shall be troubled at your departure. But thus says Adonai Yahweh, when I shall make you a desolate city, like the cities that are not inhabited, when I shall bring up the deep upon you, and great waters shall cover you, when I shall bring you down with them that descend into the pit, with the people of old time, and shall set you in the low parts of the earth, in places of desolate of old, with them that go down to the pit, that you shall not be inhabited, and I shall set glory in the land of the living. I will make you a terror, and you shall be no more, though thou be sought for, yet shall you never be found again, said Adonai Yahweh. You know, you look at this, how much more was directed toward them than was directed toward Moab and Edom and Ammon. How much more Yahweh took exception to them and what they did. Just a minute here. Got to get this thing. There's only one problem with this. It keeps wanting to shut itself down. Okay. Let's see. 26. In the prophecies against Tyre, the siege of Tyre lasted 13 years, beginning in 585 BC, about 3 years after the capture of Jerusalem. While besieging Jerusalem, Nebuchadnezzar had driven Pharaoh Hopra back to the borders of Egypt, Tyre being thus relieved from a dangerous enemy. Because up until that time, Egypt actually had control of the area of Israel and that whole Levant area. Yes, Curtis?
Wouldn't that agree with the prophecies in Daniel? When he said that this destruction of Tyre, that wouldn't that just might well have a place for it in the prophecies of Daniel and in Psalm 83 as well? Because think we got 10 kings, 10 horns, 10 toes. You got 3 being plucked out.
Yeah.
Those 3 are would be Tyre, Philistia, and Edom.
One of the comments, I don't know if it's...
there's I see that connection.
Okay.
I mean, I
Yep.
could be mistaken, but it's about to slap me.
When Ezekiel predicted the calamity about to befall her, sometimes I'll say I'll cut in because I don't really know how to do what they call it, word where you smooth into the next thing.
Segue?
Yeah, segue. The name of Tyre means rock and was given to the city in constant position. This island rock was the heart of Tyre, and the town upon the continent called Old Tyre, possibly as having been the temporary position of the first settlers, was the outgrowth of the island city. The scanty records of ancient history give no distinct evidence of the capture of insular Tyre by Nebuchadnezzar, but the fact is very probable. Compared especially, and it gives the present state of Tyre is one of utter desolation. Though the end was long delayed, Tyre was great and wealthy under Persian, Greek, Roman, and even Muslim masters. The final ruin of Tyre was due to the Sultan of Egypt in 1291 A.D. In the first day of the month, the number of the month being omitted, many suppose the month to mean the month when Jerusalem was taken, called the month, as well as, okay. Let's see, let me get on down through here. Also, it makes reference to the fact that either the inhabitants of Jerusalem, she turned into me, either the inhabitants of Jerusalem, that's in verse 2 of chapter 26, either the inhabitants of Jerusalem which escaped and fled to Tyre for refuge, or the spoil taken out of it, which was carried there to be sold, and even the captives themselves to be sold for slaves, which was one part of the merchandise of Tyre, or the business, trade, and merchandise carried on in Jerusalem were brought to Tyre upon its destruction. As it makes here, where it makes that comment, it says, and they shall know that I am Yahweh, the true God, or the true Elohim, and not Hercules or Apollo or any other idols they worship. When they shall see all these things exactly accomplished, now prophesied of, which none of but the omnipotent Elohim could foretell. Um, okay. One of the other things he was talking about, see that was a seaport. And it was also like you have another prophecy was talking about Babylon being overthrown, and the one says, they were bewailing, there's no one to buy my merchandise. And basically that's what they were, also some of the things that were going on in this. Chapter 27, verse 1, the word of Yahweh came again unto me, saying, Now, you son of man, take up a lamentation for Tyre, and say unto Tyre, O thou, or O you that art situated at the entry of the sea, which art a merchant of the people for many isles, thus says Yahweh, Adonai Yahweh, O Tyre, you have said, I am of perfect beauty. Remember, there's another aspect of this thing here with Tyre, as to talking about the Satan. It says here, thy borders are in the midst of the seas. Your builders have perfected your beauty. They have made all your shipboards of fir trees of Shinar. They have taken cedars from Lebanon to make masts for thee. Of the oaks of Bashan have they made your oars. The company of the Asherites have made your benches of ivory brought out of the isles of Shittim. Fine linen with broidered work from Egypt was that which thou spread forth to be thy sail. Blue purple with the isles of Elisha was that which covered you. The inhabitants of Zidon and Arvad were your mariners. Your wise men, O Tyre, that were in you were your pilots. Curtis, can you tell me where that reference is?
What reference?
What's about the king of Tyre?
Yeah, Ezekiel 28.
28, yeah.
Oh.
11. You keep going.
See, my hair's blonde. My hair's blonde, so that just went right over me. Yes, Robert.
Yeah. And that, what we just read here, verse 3, it says, I am perfect in beauty. Go over to 28. And verse 12, you see that exact same thing when he says, you are you and perfect in beauty.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a relation there.
Yes.
I just want, so, if you back up on 26:7, for thus says Adonai, and everything is saying, behold, I will bring against Tyre from the north. And when it describes Nebuchadnezzar, it says, King of kings with horses, with chariots, and with horsemen, and an army with many people. And
Yeah.
I find it interesting, they call, Nebuchadnezzar King of kings, like
Yeah.
future type, kind of.
Well, at that time he was, because nobody could stand against him.
Yeah,
He basically,
he's the king.
he actually ruled the known world at that time. Go over here.
Yes,
I'll get,
one more.
yes, David?
So we're talking about the reference between the adversary and Tyre, in 26:20, Ezekiel 26:20. I find it funny that it says, when I shall bring thee down with
That
them
descend
that descend
Into
into
the
the
pit,
pit.
into the
yes,
pit,
So
yeah.
who else gets thrown into the bottom of the pit?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then it goes on to say, with the people of old times, and shall set thee in the low parts of the earth. Does that mean that those that died during Noah's flood also are in the pit because they did not repent and were left out in their
They're waiting for the
judgment?
judgment day.
Yeah.
They're waiting for the fire pit. Let's see here. Okay. Verse 9 of chapter 27. The ancients of Gebal and the wise men thereof were in you. Your caulkers, all the ships of the sea with their mariners were in you to occupy your merchandise. They of Persia and of Lud and of Put were in your army. Your men of war, they hang the shield and helmet in you. They shall set forth your comeliness. The men of Arvad with your army were upon your walls round about, and the Gamadims were in your towers. They hang their shields upon your walls round about. They have made your beauty perfect. Tarshish was your merchant by reason of the multitude of all kind of riches, with silver, iron, tin, lead. They traded in furs. Javan, Tubal, and Meshach, they were your merchants. They traded the persons of men and vessels of brass in your market. They of the house of Togarmah traded in your fairs with horses and horsemen and mules. The men of Dedan that's in Edom, were your merchants. Many isles were the merchandise of your hand. They brought you for a present horns of ivory and ebony. Syria was your merchant by reason of the multitude of the wares of your making. They occupied in your fairs with emeralds, purple, and embroidery work, and fine linen, and coral, and agate. Judah and the land of Israel, they were your merchants. They traded in your market wheat of Minnith, Panag, and honey, and oil, and balm. Damascus was your merchant, in the multitude of the wares of your making, for the multitude of all riches, in the wine of Helbon and white wool. Dan also and Javan, going to and fro, occupied in your fairs. Bright iron, cassia, and calamus, all these were in your market, all of these herbs. Dedan was your merchant in precious clothes for chariots. So the Edomites were good at precious clothes for chariots. Arabia and all the princes of Kedar, they occupied with you in lambs, rams, and goats, and these were they thy merchants. The merchants of Sheba and Ramah, they were your merchants. They occupied in your fairs with cheap of all spices, with all precious stones and gold. Haran and Canath and Eden, the merchants of Sheba, Asher and Hilmad were your merchants. These were your merchants in all sorts of things, in blue clothes, and in embroidered work, and in chests of rich apparel bound with cords, and made of silver among your merchandise. The ships of Tarshish did sing of you in your market, and you were replenished and made very glorious in the midst of the seas. Your roars have brought you into great waters. The east wind has broken you in the midst of the seas. Your riches and your fairs, your merchandise, your mariners and your pilots, your conquerors and the occupiers of your merchandise, and all your men of war that are in you, and in all thy company which is in the midst of you, shall fall into the midst of the seas in the day of your ruin. The suburbs shall shake at the sound of the cry of your pilots, and all that handle the oar, the mariners and all the pilots of the sea shall come down from their ships. They shall stand upon the land, and they shall cause their voice to be heard against you, and shall cry bitterly, and shall cast up dust upon their heads, and they shall wallow themselves in the ashes. And they shall make themselves utterly bald for you, and gird you with sackcloth, and they shall weep for you with bitterness of heart and bitter wailing. And in their wailing they shall take up a lamentation for you, and lament over you, saying, what city is like Tyre, like the destroyed in the midst of the sea? And when your wares went forth out of the seas, you filled many people. You did enrich the kings of the earth with the multitude of your riches and of your merchandise. And in the time when you shall be broken by the seas and the depths of the waters, your merchandise and all your company in the midst of you shall fall. All the inhabitants of the isles shall be astonished at you, and their kings shall be sore afraid. They shall be troubled in their countenance. The merchants among the people shall hiss at you. You shall be a terror, and never shall be any more. It sounds so much like Babylon.
Yes.
And it's discussed. Yes, Curtis.
Try Revelation.
18.
Yeah.
What? Revelation
18, go 21 through 24.
18:21.
Oh, excuse me, 18, it's not that 18, Yes, pick it up in verse 9, Revelation 18.
Okay, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication, this is Revelation 18:9, and live deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament her for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. Standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in that 1 hour is your judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and of pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and all your wood and all manner of vessels of ivory, all manner of vessels of precious wood and of brass and iron and marble and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense, wine, oil, fine flour, wheat, beasts and sheep, horses, chariots and slaves, souls of men, and the fruits that their soul lust after are departed from you, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from you, and you shall find them no more at all.
Keep going.
The merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company in the ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? I think that's pretty well covers what's going on here.
Yeah.
I just want to highlight. I mean, when they're trading, that includes people, right?
Yeah.
Human lives,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Both back in Ezekiel 13 and in Revelation 8:13, right? So I just want to
Yeah.
include people.
The okay. Chapter 28. The word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyre, thus says Adonai Yahweh, because your high heart is lifted up, and you have said, I am Elohim. I sit in the seat of Elohim. Lord, that's also another one that's in Revelation. One that was sort of, and say his, in the midst of the seas, yet you are a man and not Elohim, though you set your heart as the heart of Elohim. Behold, you are wiser than Daniel. There is no secret that they can hide from you. With your wisdom and with your understanding, you have gotten you riches, and has gotten gold and silver into your treasures. By your great wisdom and by your traffic have you increased your riches, and your heart is lifted up because of your riches. Therefore, thus says Adonai Yahweh, because you have set your heart as the heart of Elohim, behold, therefore I will bring strangers upon you, the terrible nations, and they shall draw their swords against the beauty of your wisdom, and they shall defile your brightness. They shall bring you down to the pit. Here we go back to the pit. And you shall die the death of them that are slain in the midst of the seas. Will you yet say before him that slays you, I am Elohim? But you shall be a man, and know Elohim, in the hand of him that slays you. You shall die the death of the uncircumcised by the hand of strangers, for I have spoken, it says Adonai Yahweh. Moreover, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyre, and say unto him, Thus says Adonai Yahweh, Thou seals up the sum, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You have been in the Eden, the garden of Elohim. So we've gone from being this city to an individual. It says, you have been in the Eden, the garden of Elohim. Who all had been in Eden? I mean, at this time period, none of them would be alive that are human. So there's only left one that was there, other than Yahweh. And that would be Satan. It says here, you've been in Eden, the garden of Elohim. Every precious stone was your covering. the sardis, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of your tabrets and of thy pipes was prepared in you in the day that you were created. So he was created. You are the anointed cherub that covers, and I have set you so. You were upon the holy mountain of Elohim. You have walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. You were perfect in your ways from the day that you were created, till iniquity was found in you. Let's see, 15a. Let me check something out. 14:12. Isaiah 14:12 is what I'm looking at. Here I got a reference. Yeah, it goes back to Isaiah 14:12. How are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How are you cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nation? For you have said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of Elohim. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High.
That's what he really wants.
Well, yeah, if you're going to, I guess you can say one thing. If you're going to want to achieve something, why go for the little thing? Go for the biggest thing in the world. One of the things I'll take this moment that gets me. You think about it with the fact that Yeshua was able to be taken from a spirit being to human flesh. Okay. Because there was one thing. The spirit being cannot die. Cannot experience death. Don't have any idea what it's like. By being put into that human body, he died. Then Yahweh restored, the Father restored his spirit to his spiritual body, which is what's going to happen at the resurrection. That's what's going to happen at the changes that we're going to go through at that last trump. But the thing here, I guess I'm trying to get across, Satan or Lucifer, when he attacked Yahweh, he believed that he could kill Yahweh, kill the Father, and replace him. That's when he got his comeuppance. That's when he found out that he wasn't killable and such, but he is. Think of what Yahweh will probably do when he talks about throwing him in that lake of fire. He will be changed from spirit being into
Snake.
serpent, whatever you want to say, okay? And when he goes into that lake of fire, people, they talk about going to burn forever. How long is forever?
Till the end of the age.
Strike a match. Let it burn.
Till it goes out.
Until it burns up all of the fuel. It's consumed. It's done. That's the length of time. So basically, as I put it, with Satan and those that are going to go into the lake of fire, it's going to be, they hit that lake of fire, they're gone forever. Yes, Larry.
So, an example in human history, those who were in Japan when the nuclear bomb went off, those at ground zero, okay? Nuclear fission, they were instantly vaporized.
Right.
So, it was instantaneous.
Right. Instantaneous. And so it's a way. The reason I say this, people want to. I had a girl that I worked with that she was raised Church of Christ. Her dad was a Church of Christ minister. So, as being a Church of Christ child, a minister's child, she had to live a certain standard of life. Okay. She couldn't do that. She couldn't dance. She couldn't do this. She couldn't do that. She couldn't do the other. So in her mind, she thinks that those people that did do those things that she couldn't do, that she was forbidden from doing, should have to be tortured for the rest of their life. Well, the burning hell side of it. But I look at it from the point of fact that Yahweh is very merciful. What good is he going to get out of it if that person cannot be recovered? If that person cannot repent and Yahweh restore them to as a spiritual being. Better that they die instantaneously and it's over with. Because Yahweh's not going to get any advantage out of it, of letting them torment and torment and torment and torment and torment forever. What good is it if they cannot be, as you say in a lot of cases, rehabilitated? Because there's nothing in Scripture that talks about the ability for them to be rehabilitated. So, yes, Curtis.
And just a minute ago we read where this Hasatan, this Lucifer was created perfect in all his ways and all the beauty he was given. This bit out of Genesis 1, closing remarks of Genesis 1, shows that Yahweh did not create a devil per se, did not create a devil. Right. Genesis 1:31. Then Yahweh saw that everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good, including who were what now?
Satan.
That's right.
Yes.
And so the evening and morning were the sixth day.
Yeah.
So he fell by his own, Satan, this Lucifer fell by his own transgression.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I was, one thing I've noticed, like in verse 13, I think it's previous studies, that all of those precious stones, 9 of those stones out of the 12 stones that's in the breastplate of the priest,
Yes.
he had before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to just point
Basically,
out,
he basically had a breastplate of his own originally.
Exactly.
And it shows he had a very high position.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So, going on, and we'll go ahead. Let's see how many more verses are there. I'm gonna finish up this particular segment of chapter 28. He says, "Until iniquity was found in you, by the multitude of your merchandise, they have filled the midst of you with violence. You have sinned. Therefore, I will cast you as profane out of the mountain of Elohim, which he was, and I will destroy you, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You have corrupted your wisdom by reason of your brightness. I will cast you to the ground. I will lay you before the kings, that they may behold you. You have defiled my sanctuaries by the multitude of your iniquities." Well, I mean, he was in the ultimate sanctuary, being in heaven. "By the iniquity of your traffic, therefore will I bring forth a fire from the midst of you. It shall devour you, and I will bring you to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all them that behold you." If you go in that lake of fire, you'll be ashes. "And all they that know you among the people shall be astonished at you. You shall be a terror, and shalt never shalt you be any more." And there it talks about this there. You shall cease. You will not be there. Okay, I'm going to close with that. We've had a nice round both today. I really appreciate y'all's bearing with me, because I'm still having problems with some of this. And that I actually made through all the way without passing out.
Praise ya.
That's what got me into this. Okay, David.